is a weird place. About 6 years ago, I did some work as a private investigator. Don't worry, it's not as cool as it sounds. It's mostly just sitting around, observing and documenting. A lot of simple surveillance work. Television and movies tend to exaggerate it a bit. During my time as a PI, I didn't observe anything earth-shattering. But there was one case that bothered me. A case that really showed how messed up certain people can be. In order to protect her privacy, I'll call her Sue. About 7 months into my freelance career, I met Sue. She was a young, confident woman with her own business. Her company was wildly successful and still growing. I admired Sue in many ways. She started with almost nothing and built this entire company. She went out on her own and gathered several investors who helped her start. One of her investors was a friend of hers, named Charlie. At first, she refused to take any money from Charlie since they were friends. They even went on a few dates early on in their friendship, but realized they were much better as just friends. She had known Charlie for several years. They met at her previous place of employment. Sue was a bartender, and Charlie was one of her regulars. She didn't know his exact age, but assumed he was most likely about 11 years older than she was. According to her, and several other people who knew Steve, he was the kind of person who gave off the aura of a very rich man. He drove a Corvette, always looked like he was ready to attend a business meeting, and was the first person to whip out his wallet to buy drinks. Whenever he would come into the bar, Sue would tell him about her dreams and the business she wanted to start. Charlie would offer her money daily, but she always refused. He would insist. But Sue never caved in, at least for a while. She eventually hit a wall and ran out of money with her other investors. She never wanted to take money from a friend, but it's like Charlie was the last hope to make her dream a reality. Well, she was about to find out why you never do business like this with your friends, especially friends you may have a romantic history with. Not long after giving Sue the money, Charlie became mentally abusive. She saved all the calls and texts from that time and showed me. This guy called her non-stop. We're talking 24/7, blowing up her phone. She was afraid to change her number or get the law involved because she felt guilty about taking the money. It got even worse for Sue. Whenever she would go out and date, Charlie would show up and harass the man she would be out with. One night, she went out for drinks with a guy she'd been seeing. Charlie followed them to the bar. When he witnessed the man put his arm around Sue, he walked up to him and punched him in the face, knocking him completely out. I don't know how he did it, but no charges were filed against Charlie. She claims it's because of his wealth, but I don't know about that. According to Sue, this harassment went on for months. She was very conflicted. She had already used a majority of the money Charlie gave her. She put everything she had into this business, but she was suffocating because of this guy. She claimed that it got so bad that she was sure he was stalking her apartment at night. She would wake up in the middle of the night and hear what sounded like footsteps walking around outside her bedroom. This paranoia made it impossible for her to date or grow. Whether it was true or not, that feeling of someone just waiting around every corner was crippling for her. Everywhere she went, she'd see what she always assumed was his red pickup truck. Then one day, with zero notice, Charlie vanished. She stopped seeing the red truck. He wouldn't show up at her job. No more sounds of footsteps outside the door. It was like her life was finally returning to normal. Sue hoped that he had just moved on. Eventually, she started dating again, and there were no surprise attacks from Charlie. For a couple of years, she expected Charlie to just show up one day, but as the years passed, Charlie, her company, finally took off, and she moved to a new house to start the next chapter of her life. That's when she started to think about Charlie a lot, not in a friendly manner. She basically wanted to pay back all the money that Charlie put into the company, so he never had anything to hold over her head. She tried to get a hold of him, but the number she had was out of service. She tried looking him up on Facebook and Instagram, but he wasn't on any social media platforms. She even went back to the bar she used to work at and asked them if anyone had seen Charlie. And nobody had seen him in years. It was like he just vanished off the face of the earth. She was ready to just move on and let it go. And then something happened. In the middle of the night, she heard a knock at the door. She looked out the window near the front door and saw a tall figure with a hood on. She thought it had to be Charlie. She had nothing to base that claim on other than her gut. He knocked on the door again. She didn't answer. She told me that he waited there for about 25 minutes and then finally walked away. The next day, she contacted me, and that's when I got this entire story. She didn't want to play games. She wanted me to find Charlie so she could pay him back and officially move on with her life. After a little investigation, I found out that his real name was not Charlie. I couldn't figure out where he got all this money. I was able to find out that he played this little game in other towns as well, with different names. He would flaunt his money and try to win the affection of women, but the last time there's any record of him anywhere is the last time he contacted Sue, which was over 1 year ago at this point. All his known aliases had gone quiet, and the places he rented were no longer inhabited by him. One night during my investigation, the person came back to the door in the middle of the night. She called me right away. When I got there, he was gone. I spent a bit of time investigating the area near her house. I didn't want to stray too far in case he came back. She was terrified that the person at the door was him, and that he was going to keep coming back for her. I spent the next few nights staked out in the front of Sue's home. I told her that if he came back, I'd get him. Sure enough, at 2:15 in the morning, the person knocked on Sue's door again. I got out of the car to approach this person, but they saw me. He took off into the night. He was fast, but I was able to track him. He ran into a heavily wooded area near Sue's house. I went back to Sue's home and made sure she was okay. I told her to go to one of her family members' houses, just in case. Right at sunrise, I went into the woods to track this person. After a few minutes of walking, I stumbled across something terrifying and almost unbelievable. There was a small shed in the woods. That's the best way I can think to describe it. I slowly opened the door and instantly got hit by a horrible smell inside. Clearly someone was living here, and they hadn't bathed in a long time. Thankfully, nobody was inside the small shed at the moment. There were food wrappers and cans of beer and soda all over the floor. But the worst part of this little shelter in the woods wasn't the smell. It was what I found inside. There was a wheelchair with a mannequin sitting in it. The head was slightly beaten up and covered with makeup and a blonde wig. In the lap of the mannequin was a photo of Charlie and Sue from when she still worked at the bar. It was clearly supposed to resemble Sue in a sick, twisted way. I immediately called the police, gave them my location, and filled them in on everything happening. I met the police outside the woods several minutes later. They quietly surveyed the area. Not long after they showed up, the hooded figure came back to his little shed and started talking to the mannequin. The police knocked on the shed door, and the man became enraged. Instantly, he tried to attack one of the officers, but it was unsuccessful. They arrested him, and it was, in fact, Charlie. They had no idea how long he had been living in the woods and stalking Sue. It's sad that people out there are capable of this kind of thing. If Sue had never reached out to me, who knows if Charlie would have gotten into the house. It didn't look like he tried to break in at all. But that doesn't change the fact that whatever he wanted, it clearly wouldn't have been good. What's frustrating is that we never got any real answers with Charlie. We never found out where he went, or how he lost all his money. The man they arrested in the woods was a shell of a human being. I'm sure Sue is still recovering from this nightmare. I don't know if you ever fully recover from something this twisted. It just goes to show you that even someone you consider a friend can end up being a monster.